Right at this very second, while you are watching this video, billions of tons of solid volcanic rock are silently sliding toward the dark depths of the Pacific Ocean. Most people view Hawaii as a static tropical paradise, but the terrifying truth is that these islands are actually massive piles of unstable debris losing a battle with gravity. If you measure from the freezing seafloor, Mauna Kea stands over 33,500 feet tall, making it significantly higher than the famous peak of Mount Everest. However, unlike the solid granite heart of the Himalayas, the Hawaiian Islands are essentially loose heaps of volcanic stones that are constantly shifting under their own immense weight. In the year 2018, the world witnessed the fragility of this paradise when the ground in Leilani Estates cracked open to reveal a hellish landscape of fire and ash. Fountains of glowing molten lava erupted over 100 feet into the air, consuming dozens of luxury homes and forcing thousands of terrified residents to flee for their lives. These violent eruptions were not just isolated events, but rather symptoms of a much larger and more dangerous geological collapse that is happening right beneath our unsuspecting feet today. Modern geologists have discovered that the entire southern flank of the Big Island is moving toward the sea at a steady rate of 4 inches every single calendar year. This movement might seem slow to us, but on a geological scale, it represents a massive mountain of stone that is preparing to fall into the deep blue abyss. The postcard images of swaying palm trees and calm blue waters are a beautiful mask covering a ticking time bomb that could trigger a global catastrophe at any moment. Today, we will explore why this tropical haven is actually the most dangerous place on Earth, and why the ocean might soon reclaim everything humans have fought to build. From the hidden magma chambers to the massive underwater landslides, the story of Hawaii is not one of peace, but a desperate struggle against the crushing force of nature. Get ready to dive deep into the science of the invisible collapse, where we separate the myth of the island paradise from the cold reality of a world ending. Mauna Loa is the largest active volcano on our planet, occupying more than 51% of the total land area of the Big Island of Hawaii right now. Its physical mass is so incredibly heavy that it is actually bending the solid crust of the Earth downward by nearly 5 miles into the burning mantle below. Imagine a mountain so dense and powerful that the very foundation of our world cannot support its weight without sagging under the pressure of billions of tons. Beneath this giant, there exists a complex network of hidden tunnels and glowing magma chambers that scientists are only now beginning to fully map and understand with technology. Recent geological studies have confirmed a terrifying secret. A massive underground magma connectome physically links the giant Mauna Loa to its smaller, more active sibling, the Kilauea volcano. This means that these two volcanic monsters are not independent entities, but rather separate heads of the same fire-breathing beast, hidden deep within the dark belly of the Earth. When one volcano begins to inflate with molten rock, the pressure often ripples through this shared plumbing system, potentially triggering a chain reaction of destruction across the island. Scientists use precise lasers and satellite data to measure how the ground literally breathes, swelling upward by several inches as magma fills the reservoirs miles beneath the surface. This process of volcanic inflation is like a slow-motion explosion, stretching the rocky skin of the island until it inevitably snaps and releases a torrent of liquid fire. During the eruption of 2022, the world watched in awe as Mauna Loa awoke from a slumber of nearly 40 years, sending rivers of fire down slopes. The sheer volume of magma contained within these chambers is enough to bury every major city on Earth under a layer of molten stone several feet thick in order. The heat generated by this liquid rock exceeds 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to melt steel beams and turn solid asphalt roads into glowing glass. As the magma moves, it creates distinct seismic signals known as harmonic tremors, which act like a rhythmic heartbeat, warning us of the immense power shifting deep inside mountains. These tremors are constant reminders that we are living on top of a dynamic and violent furnace that operates on a scale far beyond any human engineering or control. Every time the magma levels rise, the internal pressure increases to thousands of pounds per square inch, searching for any weak point in the island's fragile and cracked crust. Once a fissure finally opens, the release of toxic sulfur dioxide gas can create a dangerous fog that chokes the air for hundreds of miles across the Pacific Ocean. We must understand that the ground beneath Hawaii is not a solid foundation, but a thin and brittle shell floating on a sea of pressurized, glowing, liquid volcanic rock. The connectome between these volcanoes creates a situation where a single earthquake could trigger a massive, dual eruption that the modern world has never witnessed in recorded human history. This hidden plumbing system is the primary engine of the island's growth, but it is also the very force that is making the entire structure increasingly heavy and unstable. As we look closer at this fiery network, we realize that the most significant threat to Hawaii is not just the lava itself, but what happens when the mountain collapses. While the red rivers of lava are a visible threat to many people, a much larger and more terrifying monster is silently hiding on the southern coast of the island. This geological feature is known to scientists as the Helena Slump, a massive block of the Earth's crust that is currently preparing to break away and fall into the ocean. To understand the true scale of this danger, imagine a wall of rock containing over 12,000 cubic kilometers of material, which is enough to bury all of Europe. This massive section of the Big Island is moving toward the sea at a steady rate of 4 inches every year, which might seem very slow to the naked eye. However, on a geological timeline, this movement is an extremely rapid slide toward a catastrophic collapse that could happen in a matter of seconds during a single massive earthquake event. The primary reason for this instability is a layer of soft marine sediment and volcanic debris that acts like a thick layer of grease beneath the heavy weight of mountain. Back in the year 1975, a powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 7.7 shook the entire island and caused a terrifying preview of what the future holds. During that single violent event, a large portion of the southern coastline suddenly dropped by 11 feet and moved outward toward the dark blue water by more than 26 feet. This shift happened in just a few heartbeats, proving that the massive Helena Slump is not firmly attached to the rest of the island, but is instead precariously balanced. Many leading scientists from the United States Geological Survey are now closely monitoring this unstable slope with sophisticated global positioning sensors and high-tech deep-sea cameras to detect movement. These sensors show that the friction holding this mountain of rock in place is slowly being overcome by the immense pressure of the magma expanding deep within the volcano heart. If a massive earthquake were to snap this remaining friction, the entire 12,000 cubic kilometers of rock would slide 4 miles down to the bottom of the ocean. The sudden displacement of so much water would be equivalent to dropping 1,000 mountains into a bathtub at once, creating a massive wave that would dwarf any modern tsunami. This is not just a theoretical scenario, because geological records show that similar massive landslides have occurred several times during the long history of the Hawaiian Islands over millions of years. We are living in a period of temporary stability, but the underlying physics of the Big Island dictate that a total collapse of the southern flank is an absolute certainty. Every single volcanic eruption adds millions of tons of new lava to the top of the island, increasing the downward force and pushing the Helena Slump closer to breaking. Tourists often walk along the beautiful coastal cliffs without realizing that they are standing on a massive piece of rock that is already detached from the solid foundation. The beautiful black sand beaches and high volcanic peaks are just temporary features on a structure that is currently in the process of falling apart under its own mass. To imagine the horror of this event, one must visualize a piece of land 40 miles wide and 60 miles long suddenly plunging into the cold and dark depths. The energy released during such a massive landslide would be far greater than the combined power of every single nuclear weapon ever detonated by humans in our entire history. This is the fatal flaw of Hawaii, a beautiful island built on a foundation of loose sand and brittle stone that is slowly but surely being pulled down by ocean. As we wait for the inevitable earthquake that will trigger the final slide, we must consider the global consequences of thousands of tons of rock crashing into the water. The true horror of the Helena Slump collapse is not what happens on the land, but the monstrous wall of water that will soon race across the entire globe. When 12,000 cubic kilometers of solid rock suddenly plunge into the deep blue ocean, the kinetic energy released will be equivalent to millions of hydrogen bombs detonated at once. This immense force will instantly push the seawater upward, creating a monstrous mountain of liquid that will tower over 1,000 feet into the dark and stormy Hawaiian sky. This is what scientists call a mega-tsunami, a colossal wall of water that is significantly larger and more destructive than any wave ever recorded in modern human history. Near the shore of the Big Island, this towering wall of water will reach a height of 300 meters, which is taller than most major skyscrapers on Earth. Within just a few minutes, the entire coastline of Hawaii will be erased by the crushing weight of the Pacific Ocean slamming back into the land with unimaginable power. On the island of Lanai, researchers have found ancient pieces of coral deposited at a height of over 1,075 feet above the current sea level today. These sea fossils serve as a silent warning from the distant past, proving that a massive mega-tsunami has already struck these beautiful tropical islands several thousand years ago. As the initial wave settles, the energy will begin to race across the entire Pacific Basin at a speed of over 500 miles per hour, like a jet. In less than 5 hours, the first massive waves will reach the densely populated coastlines of California, including the major metropolitan areas of Los Angeles and San Francisco. Although the wave will lose some height as it travels, it could still reach the west coast at a staggering height of over 150 feet tall. Every coastal city, from San Diego to Seattle, would face total destruction as the ocean surge moves several miles inland, sweeping away everything in its dark and violent path. Meanwhile, the wave will continue its relentless journey toward the west, heading directly for the island nations of Japan and the vast eastern coastline of the continent of Australia. Within 8 to 12 hours of the initial collapse, these distant regions will be struck by waves that are still over 60 feet high, causing massive global flooding. The total economic damage would be measured in the trillions of dollars, as the world's major shipping ports and coastal infrastructure are reduced to piles of twisted metal debris. We must also consider the ancient Alika slump, which occurred several 100,000 years ago and created a wave that was over 1,600 feet tall. To put that into perspective, such a wave would be twice as tall as the famous Eiffel Tower in Paris, or even taller than the massive Burj Khalifa building. The sheer physics of such a disaster are difficult for the human mind to comprehend, yet the geological evidence shows that it is a cycle that repeats every few millennia. Entire civilizations could be wiped out in a single day, as the ocean reclaims the land with a violence that makes every previous natural disaster seem small by comparison. There is no warning system on Earth that could adequately prepare the billions of people living near the coast for a wave of this truly massive and terrifying magnitude. As the water eventually recedes, the entire map of the Pacific Ocean would be forever altered, leaving behind a scarred landscape and a world that will never be same. This is the nightmare scenario that keeps geologists awake at night, knowing that a single massive crack in the island could trigger the end of the modern coastal world. The beauty of Hawaii hides this dark potential, reminding us that we are just temporary guests on a planet that is constantly reshaping itself through violence and raw power. Every quiet morning on the beach is just another tick of the clock, bringing us closer to the moment when the mountain of stone decides to finally fall down. We often talk about climate change as the primary threat, but the gravity of the Helena slump represents a much more immediate and unstoppable danger to our entire species. In the final chapter of this story, we must ask ourselves how we can possibly justify building multi-million-dollar cities on the edge of such a violent and predictable abyss. Look at the coastal roads of the Big Island today, where millions of dollars in federal taxes are spent every year to rebuild the same asphalt over fresh lava. We are witnessing a $10 billion gamble against the laws of nature as developers continue to build luxury resorts on land that was molten fire recently. In the year 2018, the Kilauea eruption caused over $800 million in physical damages to homes, roads, and vital electrical infrastructure across the southern Puna district. Despite these staggering financial losses, the government has already committed several $100 million more to restore the very same power lines that the volcano will surely swallow again. This cycle of destruction and reconstruction is like a desperate game of musical chairs played on the edge of a burning crater that never actually stops moving or growing. Major insurance companies are now refusing to cover properties located in Lava Zone 1 and 2, effectively making these beautiful paradise homes a massive liability for any investor. The cost of home insurance has increased by over 500% in recent years, forcing many local families to leave their ancestral lands in search of safer ground. Yet, for every person who leaves, a new dreamer arrives with millions of dollars. Blinded by the beauty of the palm trees and the sound of the crashing waves, they choose to ignore the deep fissures in the earth and the toxic gases in the air, believing that their luck will somehow hold against the raw power of nature. We must finally ask the hard question: are we really the masters of this land? Or are we simply guests on a lease that is about to expire very soon? Every road we pave over the cooling black stone is a temporary victory against a giant that has been building this island for over 5 million years. If you owned a piece of this beautiful but dangerous dream today, would you choose to sell it and walk away? Or would you bet your life on luck? Hawaii is a masterpiece of creation and destruction, a place that reminds us that everything we build is ultimately just borrowed from the deep and fiery heart of world. The next earthquake, the next eruption, or the final collapse of the Helena slump is not a matter of if it will happen, but exactly when the mountain falls. Until that day arrives, we will continue to dance on the edge of the abyss, enjoying the beauty of the paradise, while the clock beneath our feet keeps ticking. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the dark side of paradise, and remember to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden secrets of our planet.